There you were in your maroon sweater vest, smelling of spices and cologne. You were everything exotic that I had never experienced before. Worldly, well-spoken, highly intelligent, we spent the evening curled toward one another like flowers in the sunlight, with you pointing out my dimples each time I smiled, and I did my best to remember to breathe, into my lungs and out again. You told me I was lovely. You became my best friend, a part of my minuscule circle, quickly. You plied me with homemade turkey curry and Netflix after I collapsed on the couch, too tired after work to even consider preparing a meal for myself. You adapted me to dry reds and the spiciest dishes my tongue could handle. We binged on crime shows and horror movies, and you held me while I cried if I had a terrible day at work. You loved my hometown, the village feel of it, that people cared instead of passing by, that we harbored more greenery than people, all things I scoffed at while growing up. You taught me not to take words so personally from others, a weakness I still struggle with. On our last adventure together in America, we escaped to Vermont and took a cruise on Lake Champlain, and with the lake's breeze whipping through our hair, we laughed and smiled and pretended you didn't have to leave. Several months before you left, when I told you I loved you and you said it back, I didn't feel the relief I expected. Instead, I felt the burgeoning ache of hopelessness inside of my ribcage, my heart. How truly unfair, how cruel, to fall so in love with your other half and not be certain you can be together. From there on out, the ache in my chest intensified each time I saw you, knowing that it could be one of the last times I held your hand or hugged you, until the one time, day or evening, I cannot recall, you said you wanted to marry me. And near my heart, alongside the ache, I felt a strange stirring, like there was a small winged creature fluttering, trying frantically to escape. The flutters gave me hope. Even when you walked away from me that August day, to return to your home far, far away from me, when I sobbed on my bed and couldn't feel the wings beating against my ribs anymore, I prayed the hope would return. Day and night, I prayed. I felt reckless and stupid. I lived my life as best as possible. I went places and did things I enjoyed, but part of me mourned that I wasn't sharing them with you. Worst of all, I worried I was wasting my best years and my youth on a pipe dream. What should have been my prime was spent hunched over my laptop, peering at your face on the other side I couldn't touch, and the ache seized my heart again. A year passed and you returned for a visit. You radiated joy and embraced me, and whispered that I was beautiful. And the wings, the traitorous wings, fluttered to life against my heart once more. I set a date for our wedding, April 21st, 2012. In those weeks you were here, and we were going to be married then. I demanded that you tell your parents, and you nodded stiffly and agreed. But I could see the tension, the anxiety that they wouldn't be all right with it. You told me I didn't understand how delicately this had to be approached, but I had waited so long at that point that I didn't want to hear it. I thought it was silly. Why couldn't your culture catch up with the rest of the world, where it's acceptable and encouraged to marry someone you are in love with? Why did choosing a marriage partner consist of a checklist? It made no sense to someone who was always told to do what made me happy, regardless of how others felt, including parents. Our friend took our photos, and I thought of them as engagement ones, and I shared them secretly with family and friends. All the while, the hope-filled wings beat harder and harder in my chest. When you finally left after spending 2 weeks with me, the ache was nearly consumed by the flutters, and I threw myself into planning our wedding, so the wings would not stop again. I bought my dream gown, ivory and antique and dramatic, before I even knew if our marriage was certain. 1 month after I bought my dress, you told me you approached your parents about us, and they hadn't said no, which apparently was a good sign. I agonized for 10 days. On what were they judging me? My looks? Was I pretty enough compared to the Malayali women who had met and been turned down by you before? Were they frowning on my career and my prospects? They weren't as illustrious as someone of your caliber would have expected in a typical arranged marriage. That much I knew. I brought no money, no reputation, nothing that your culture values highly when choosing a life partner. My offer was this: my love, my loyalty and devotion, and my friendship. I held my breath for those 10 days, wondering, fretting, until you received the reply with some caveats. Yes, you could marry me, but the wedding had to be in India, and I had to join your church. I spent several Sundays driving back and forth from a church in New Jersey. I bartered for schedule changes at work and begged for extra Sundays off because it was a 6-hour drive total. I could see the pity in the eyes of people, and I hated it. I felt resentful in moments that this couldn't be a normal engagement, where I get a ring and everyone's happy and knows I'm not crazy. But I loved you, and you were my best friend, and I chose to be crazy. I ignored the pitying looks and concentrated on the wings that continued to bruise my heart with their promises of hope. The last Sunday I attended the church, I hunted down the priest who handed me the little coveted piece of paper that I had hoped for, that read no one objected to our marriage. And so I clutched the paper to my chest and stowed it in my fireproof safe once I reached home, because that paper was more valuable than gold. I arrived in India on February 1st, 2012, overwhelmed and confused, but when I spotted you in the crowd waiting for me, waiting to be my husband and partner for life, I knew then that all the struggle had been worth it. My aunt, who had come with me, pulled the luggage cart away from me and said, "Go to him." And so I ran and hugged you, burying my face in your shoulder, and I could feel the wings growing in size and strength, beating harder, making it almost impossible to breathe. I remember only fragments of our Indian wedding day on February 4th, 2012. My stomach was in knots. I dry heaved in the hotel bathroom, clothed in my wedding dress and veil. I wanted so badly to do everything right and properly, to start off on the right foot with your family, who had treated me like a princess since I arrived. During the ceremony, I tried so hard to concentrate on what was being said, but all I can remember now was how badly my feet ached from my heels, the priest getting a small gold cross stuck in my hairspray-laden curls, and feeling the wings grow stronger and larger so much that I had to remind myself to breathe in and out because my lungs felt constricted. And then we were husband and wife. Flower garlands placed around our necks, photos snapped, and then we were off to your parents' house for another ceremony. I felt so welcomed, like I had always been a part of your family, and I held back tears several times at the deep-seated meaning of it all. I survived the Indian wedding reception, where there were close to 1,000 people, and we didn't get to eat until after the guests had left. My cheeks burned and ached from smiling. I could feel the beats from the wings behind my sternum as I shook each guest's hand, and I worried my chest would break open from the fulfilled hope that needed to be set free. Your brother finally ushered us to our hotel room and left us alone, the first time alone as husband and wife. You helped me remove the bobby pins from my hair, and we laughed when the insert from my hair bump fell out and made me shriek. Time finally slowed, and we held each other close, and when I succumbed to a deep sleep that night brought on by jet lag and exhaustion from constant adrenaline, I dreamed that I was flying. And I've been flying ever since that dream. These wings, born out of my hope and our love, have carried me through many hardships and joys. They comfortingly caressed me when I had to say goodbye to you once more after our India wedding, and I had to return to the United States. They wrapped around me when I cried with anxiety and fear as I packed my belongings into 2 suitcases and boarded the plane alone to move to Kerala to live with you. They beat insistently with joy when I saw you waiting for me again at the airport. Only this time, instead of rushing around for a wedding, we quietly went to our new home together. As I adjusted to my new country and culture, as I learned to survive and thrive in Kerala, the wings were with me, shedding their soft, downy newborn feathers for stronger, smoother, more self-assured ones. When I gave birth to our daughter, almost 2 complete years after our wedding, the wings strained and trembled as I struggled through my labor pains, and after our daughter was pushed into the world wailing and kicking, the wings supported my shaky arms as I held her for the first time. As time has gone on, slowly and surely I have needed the wings less and less. You, my love, have replaced them when it's needed most. Your arms hug me when I need comforting. Your laughter, smiles, and kisses replace their thrumming when we are celebrating. I truly believe that I would forever need their constant reminders of what I am capable of. How strong and brave I am. How foolish was I, though, because all I ever really needed was you. You are my wings, and you have taught me how to fly.